In 1972, one of the most important events ever took place in the chess world. This was actually an event that was even bigger than the world of chess itself, captured front-page news on the New York Times, and captured worldwide media attention. Today we're very fortunate to have with us to discuss the Fischer-Spassky chess match that took place in Reykjavik, Iceland, the heir apparent and the man who would eventually become world champion after Bobby Fischer retired from chess. My good friend Anatoly Karpov is here to discuss with us not only the games of this historic event, but the events surrounding the match, the results that it had on the chess world afterwards. Anatoly, welcome to the show.
Well, so in 1972, of course, the world attention was just close to this match, and that time I was already strong grandmaster. So I had some big victories, like Moscow All-Star Tournament, like Hastings 71. And during this match, I was playing in Austria in Student Chess Olympiad, and we were watching closely what was happening. One of the games which we shall analyze today, I remember since that time because we were impressed by Fischer play in this Tartakover-Makagonov Bondarevsky variation. And I remember this like it has happened yesterday, how we analyzed. And so Fischer, in this match, Fischer was really very strong. And so that time I was on Spassky's side, because even I could be one of his seconds. In 1972, Spassky invited me to help him in preparation, but only for last 20 days before the match. And I remember that for last 20 days, Spassky did nothing, absolutely nothing. I spent all 20 days in the training camp, and most of the time, it was near Moscow, most of the time Spassky spent in Moscow. And even when he was with us, he was reading, I think, Legend of Old Greece, and he was playing tennis. But in chess, he invited me just to play several training games, and we played only one. I played with white. It was Spanish. That time I was already a big specialist for both sides, white and black. And so I had completely winning position, but then I just missed a very simple trick. I lost the game, and then Spassky decided that he is well prepared for match with Fischer.
But actually, to take a look at a couple of things before we go, the first game we're going to look at is Game 3, but before that, we have to realize that Fischer had never actually beaten Spassky in a tournament game. He'd lost to him in Santa Monica, a very nice game by Spassky. He lost to him in the Olympiad.
In Zigin in 1970, yes, decisive game when Russian team should fight for the first place.
And so even at this, but Fischer had such an incredible series of results. He destroyed Taimanov 6-0, he beat Larsen 6-0, he crushed Petrosian, 6.5, 2.5, on the way to the throne to play Spassky. And so feelings were mixed. A lot of people thought that Fischer would destroy Spassky. A lot of people thought Spassky was still stronger.
No, Spassky was still strong that time. I cannot say stronger. But what happened, because of his character, he overestimated himself. He underestimated Fischer. And mostly what Spassky did wrong, he didn't make serious preparation. Underestimated Fischer, overestimated himself, but the biggest mistake what Spassky made, he didn't prepare seriously to this match. But match started very strangely.
Actually, what happened in Game 1 was Fischer playing black in a Queen's Gambit declined, equalized completely, overextended himself, grabbed the famous H2 pawn, if you remember, and then lost a game that he absolutely had no business losing.
No, I think this was a psychological duel. Spassky wanted to show that he can make draw if he wants, and Fischer wanted to show that he can make complications over chessboard in any position. And so he sacrificed the piece. Of course, it was not necessary, and then he lost himself by himself.
And so then the amazing thing is Fischer then had a disagreement with the organizers. He didn't show up for game 2. He was complaining about the television cameras. He wanted more money. And then there was like a break for a while. And the people on Spassky's side, I just read in an interview, the delegation was pressuring him to go ahead and claim a forfeit. And he was saying, no, I came to beat Fischer. You know, I'm here to play chess. And he stuck by his principles. And so that kind of set the stage for game 3.
No, but actually game 2, Fischer missed game 2.
Yes, he forfeited. So he
was down 2 points.
To a player that he'd never beaten and the reigning world champion.
Yes, yes. But what Spassky said, and I agree completely, that this was big psychological defeat for Spassky when he accepted this forfeit. And then he couldn't play.
But to Fischer's credit, you know, with all his complaints and everything, he did bring a lot more money into chess. When Spassky played Petrosian in 1966, the prize was $6,000 in Moscow. They played to the winner and like $3,000 to the loser. And the Fischer-Spassky match, by comparison, you were telling me, was substantially larger.
Yes, it was official price of $160,000 for both. And additionally, Fischer could get $90,000 from British millionaire, and so this was altogether $250,000.
And that was absolutely unheard of prize fund in chess in 1972.
Yes, and then I was continuing what Fischer did for chess players, and when I played with Korchnoi, so we increased prices, and then with Kasparov it was even higher. But the momentum of chess should be my match with Fischer in 1975, when Philippine offered $5 million prize fund, but Fischer retired that moment.
Game 3 was d4, knight f6. Spassky played c4, e6. Spassky offered a Queen's Indian, but of course Fischer liked to play very sharply and played for the Benoni. d5, c takes d5, c takes d5.
And then, g6, knight c3, d6, knight to d2.
And now one idea with knight d2 is they want a very rapid knight c4 to put pressure on the pawn. So Fischer played knight b6. That way on knight c4 he can play knight b6.
Yeah, that's right. And Spassky played e4, bishop g7, bishop e2, then castle. Also, white made the same. Rook e8. And then Queen c2. So strangely, that time it was novelty.
But today this is like a very mechanical, natural move. That.
Yes, sometimes white prefers to play a4 just to stop counterplay on the queen side. But of course, you can play always a4 after a6. And so Fischer played very sharp, knight f6 to h5, which looks strange because black allows to double pawns on h file, but of course then you have good bishop on g7, good bishop on c8, and so active play. And that moment it was very interesting. Now people know how to get advantage after knight h5. That time Spassky didn't show the best way. So he took, of course, knight on h5.
Pawn takes.
Pawn takes. And then Spassky played knight c4. So I don't think it's necessary to put knight on c4, because knight has very important role to defend, to protect king's position. And so it's better to move another knight, or just to play a4 and maybe rook a3 to be ready to bring rook to defend.
One of the defects actually to Fischer's setup, even though it's very active for his pieces, is it does destroy the pawn structure and it takes away the protection of this square. And so I have seen some games, for example, Max DeLugie is a very specialist on the white side, won a very nice game against Vedberg one year in the World Open, where he played, like you said, with with pawn and rook, and then he brought this knight, and then, like you said, brought this rook over, and then he brought this knight, and he was very well situated to take advantage of the weaknesses.
Yeah, that's right. But, so rook on a1, pawn on a2, Spassky played knight c4, which I don't like.
Well, again, Spassky probably underestimated the danger.
Most probably, yeah. It was knight e5, knight e3.
Now, in principle, Spassky does the right thing with knight e3 because it's quite normal in this variation to avoid exchanging pieces with the idea to expand and push black away.
Yeah.
But now Fischer continued to play very sharp. He played queen h4.
Queen h4, and now Spassky played bishop to d2. What I would prefer myself, I think move. So f3 is under consideration, but also I would say maybe rook d1 will be possible. And so after knight g4, play knight to f1. So if you bring bishop to d4, then maybe even rook d2, and then you just push back the pieces, black pieces. But Spassky took on g4.
And now we saw Fischer's ideas. He played pawn takes, undoubled his pawn, and he still has the two bishops. And this bishop in particular is very nice.
Yes, now black has quite good play.
And
Spassky,
he has this threat.
Yes, he has this threat. And he has also threat to rook e5 if something after queen f6, for instance, rook e5 and rook h5, and then bring queen to e5. So many ideas. f5 is strong, and then black can play for idea to make some active operations on the queen side with b5. So then Spassky played bishop f4, which is a good move. Fischer played queen to f6. And then, strangely, Spassky played g3.
Okay, well, g3, of course, it does protect the bishop, but it also kind of weakens some of these squares around the white king.
Yes, this I cannot understand, and I believe that even queen d2 was better, even queen d2.
So either queen d2 or bishop g3 would have been preferable.
I don't know, bishop g3, it was recommended, and still it was better than g3, but maybe queen d2 is even better, because then you just keep option. And so sometimes you can play knight b5, and then queen on c2 is not protected after queen takes b2, and on d2 it's protected. So you can attack this pawn, and then you can bring rook to e1. So g3 is very optimistic move, I can say. And so after g3, Fischer played bishop to d7, I believe. And then white played a4. And then Fischer played b6. And Spassky played rook f to e1.
And now Fischer threatened, as you were saying, to play b5 and create some play on the queen side. This long diagonal combined with the 3-2 pawn majority, unless white finds some constructive plan, he could just gradually drift into a very difficult position.
Yes, and so here I think even rook e1 I wouldn't like, rook e1. I would play maybe h4 immediately, just with the idea, for instance, pawn is still on a7, just to play h4, and so most probably black should take. When you take, just to play f3, and black would have to stop this g4, and then you play king h2, and then you start to try to make some actions in the center with e4, e5. But then you don't have problems with e4 square. So this is quite possible, because what Spassky did, at the end his king was in danger. He played without without plan, and so quite soon we can discover white were in trouble.
Well, in the game, he doubled up his rooks, prepared to double his rooks, because he wanted to play this e5 pawn push, but once Bobby defused that, he had problems.
So b5 now, yes, and then
here
what
he
to
played
do?
rook at e1, but one analyst pointed out that if pawn takes pawn, pawn takes, rook takes, and then e5, well,
then rook a1 check is very unpleasant. No, first check, more
first
precise,
check.
yes.
and then king g2,
King g2, and then you
pawn
take.
takes pawn. And now the problem, of course, is if bishop takes, then queen to f3 is checkmate, right?
Yes,
And after rook takes,
then b4.
and then when the knight goes, say for example knight e4 looks very aggressive because you attack this pawn, you attack the queen. However, the queen goes over here, and then suddenly the threat of queen f1 checkmate is very difficult to defend.
Yes, so actually it's almost impossible. You must bring knight on passive position, but rook is hanging, so it's
It's completely lost.
And that's why Spassky didn't take on b5. He just doubled his rook on e file. Fischer played here, I think, queen to g6,
Well, this is very nice
preventing
because,
e5.
yes, he pins the pawn to the queen.
And yes, Spassky played b3,
Yes.
rook e7, and then queen d3.
Now Spassky is attacking the pawn on b5, but Fischer simply defended. And
Yes,
this
rook
maintains everything in the position for him.
And so white had to exchange. A takes b5, a takes b5.
And now Spassky has trouble finding a plan, so he decided he wanted to block up the queen side. If he does nothing, Bobby's ready to play b4, knight moves, and then bishop b5.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
this is just very, very bad news, yes?
Yes, exactly. And so that's why Spassky decided to play b4, which is a typical idea for Benoni, to meet this activity with b4, and then if black takes on b4, then knight a2, and knight
takes back on
back
d4.
this pawn, and then knight comes to c6, so white has fantastic position, and of course black doesn't allow such opportunity. Fischer played c4, most
c4,
probably
queen d2.
queen d2, and then Fischer played rook to e8.
And now Fischer has the possibility to take here and take on e4. And it's really not easy to see what can be done about this.
That's right, but still, even here I would recommend h4. Even here I would recommend this move. Then you have a better position for king, and then if black would take here, then you have f3. And again, you have some possibilities in this. In center, maybe you can play e5. This bishop is out of play till the moment. So this was the best practical chance, I could say. But Spassky just wanted to wait, and so this was decisive mistake.
Well, now
Spassky.
Fischer improved with h5.
Yes, Fischer brought his pawn to h5.
And now Spassky continued to wait. And of course, against a player like Fischer, this is very dangerous policy to just wait for him to come and get you, because he will come.
Yes, yeah, that's right. And so it happened.
Fischer continued just to improve with king h7. Spassky continued to wait. And now Fischer
Fischer
king
decided
g8
maybe
to
this
c.
is not improvement.
Spassky continued to wait. And now Fischer took on c3.
Yes.
Now, at first sight, this looks very dangerous because he gives up his valuable dark-squared bishop, and he captures his pawn. And we get an ending that is actually one of your favorites, with the bishops of opposite colors. After takes, and queen takes. And this type of ending with these opposite-colored bishops and rooks, or opposite-colored bishops and queens, this is an ending that you've become a great specialist and collected many points over the years.
Yeah, that's right. But here you see black position is much better because both kings are exposed to the attack of queen. But white king has only one square on g2 after check on the first rank. And black has a lot of possibilities to improve position of king. And it's very difficult for white to make a straight attack.
And all else considered, black starts out with an extra pawn in his pocket.
Yes, that's right. And so they are threatening to take this pawn. But of course, if white would have pawn on h4, so this would be probably equal position. But pawn is still on h2, and then this is the main trouble for white.
Well, to start with now, he played bishop h6 to threaten mate. But first off, if he takes here...
Yeah, then queen takes on
d5. And when he goes queen to f6...
Then queen d1 check and bishop c6 mate.
And this is exactly what you were talking about, how he only has one square, and it's a light square.
Yeah, and then we have all tempos with checks. That's why Spassky had to play bishop h6 just to call back the
queen to g7 mate, right?
Yes.
So
Fischer played
back.
Yes, queen g6.
And now Spassky played bishop to c1 with the idea to come to b2 and come to threaten this way.
But queen goes to b1, I believe, yeah?
Well, yes, and this pins the bishop. So now he played king f1. And now this gives Fischer time to get his bishop into the game. Bishop f5. So Spassky tries to get his king out so he has a little more room to maneuver. And now Fischer gave him queen e4 check, queen e3.
Yeah.
And now Bobby doesn't take the pawn on d5 because queen check and maybe some business.
No, this is perpetual. Of course he gives check there.
Queen c2.
And then...
and here Spassky made a terrible blunder. The best move was king e1, according to the analyst. And of course black has clear advantage. Extra pawn, maybe to push or to play bishop e4 or something.
Yes.
But in the game, he played
queen to d2, and then he allowed queen b3. And so this is already a problem.
Well, here again, his best move would be to play king e1, according to the analyst. But now he played queen to d4. Again,
Yes.
Spassky is very optimistic. He wants to play bishop b2 and go after the black king. The analyst also pointed out, though, that if he plays bishop to b2 first, then
mate in 3.
queen check,
or in 4.
king
Yes.
here, and queen check, and here,
Bishop
and bishop
b3.
here check.
Yeah.
And then this is...
Then queen e4 mate.
Well, let's see. Yes. Like so. So in the game, Spassky played queen d4, and Fischer played bishop d3 check.
And then king cannot go to d2 because this is mate.
And if king e1?
If king e1, then queen takes b4
b4
check.
with check, and this is just too many pawns.
Very unpleasant, yes.
And the
So-
other point was that if king e3, then he has very nice move queen d1, threatening the bishop. And if he goes bishop to here to threaten mate down there, then he can come
Queen f3 check,
check.
king d2, queen e2 check, and mate. Doesn't matter where king comes.
queen c2.
Yes. So, nice achievement.
Well, this was a nice sporting achievement. Theoretically, of course, the opening wasn't perfect on Fischer's part, but it was a new dynamic chess idea. But the singularly most important factor was this was the first time he'd ever beaten his rival, Boris Spassky, in a tournament game.
And especially with